unbelievable. Sorry, I just have to say that the energy from this group of women is just so incredible. And it literally like just trickles into everything in the whole week. And I think about all these amazing women right here on this call. So thank you just for being a part of it. Every one of you, you're all incredible. And we are so lucky that we we have so many people that we get to hear from them and what they have to offer in this area. So we don't have to do this alone. As we say, you can't get yourself out of prison, right? That's the saying that we need each other. So we should use this as an opportunity to strengthen ourselves, and none of us should stay in Gaulis, that we should all lift each other out of this Gaulis together. And we are really blessed today. We have Mrs. Vivi Deren joining us from Stamford, Connecticut, to share with us her words of wisdom on how we shluchos can strengthen ourselves in this area of bringing Moshiach and bringing it to our communities. Please, Mrs. Deren. And then if anyone wants to share afterwards or has any questions, please stick around for our Farbrengen.
Okay. So first of all, thank you for the opportunity. I know from my life experience that when I need to be thinking about something, I get an invitation to speak about it. So clearly this has been, for me, this is a win-win. I hope it works out for everybody else, but for me, I thank you. And now I have heard it said, I am not taking any achrayas to say this, but I have heard it said that going on a women's Zoom in a tichel is not considered going outside. For anybody that's makbid not to go outside in a tichel, I have heard it said, again, I'm not giving an endorsement or an official opinion, but I'm just putting that out there. And I also want to take the moment to dedicate the schus of this learning for a refuah shlema, for a shlucha who needs a refuah shlema, Chana Rivka Bas Shendel. Her capital is Lamed Vav, and she is in need of a refuah shlema from COVID. B'seich kol chayli Yisrael, and we should have only b'suras tevis always to share with each other. So I think I'm probably can speak for a lot of people who feel in the last few days, having been really immersed in so many different perspectives and so on about this topic. And I think particularly, Rivki, I really want to thank you for the way you pulled it together. And I'm just going to read the little blurb. Personal reflections on Moshiach in my life, my vision of Geulah, and my beautiful experience of sharing the Emunah and Biyas haMoshiach with so many others. So that first part really made me think about, Moshiach in my life. And I remember hearing from older cousins who had come from Europe that back in the day in the shtetl in Russia and Poland and so on, and Moshiach was something for old people and for sick people. And the story of the Gvir who lost all of his money, and since everybody in the town had their money with him, everybody went down, except for one person who did not lose his money. And it turned out that the week before all of this happened, he had taken his money back. That was like with a gemach with this Gvir. And people said, what did you know? And if you knew, why didn't you tell the rest of us? He said, I didn't know anything. So what do you mean? Why? How? Punkt, last week you took your money back? He said, no, it's a simple thing. I was walking into shul, he was walking out of shul, and I heard him saying, Moshiach soll schon kommen. Moshiach should come already. And I thought to myself, if that guy wants Moshiach, something's not good. That's how it was. And for, it's sometimes said in a cynical way. I just want to put it out there for a second that we should keep in mind that the fact that the miracle of Jewish existence, the fact that there are Jews, Baruch Hashem, walking the face of the earth today, is an unparalleled miracle in all of history. Nothing like that ever happened. And that is very directly connected to the ability to believe in the coming of Moshiach. So, not chas v'shalom that they had the wrong perspective, that they pulled it out in times of stress, but that it was a belief that enabled them to ride of the waves that were drowning everybody else in history. I was Baruch Hashem born on Shlichus. I was homeschooled. There wasn't a word like that then, of course. And without my parents asking, the Rebbe told them that I should go away from home to learn, and I came to Beis Rivka. And I came to Beis Rivka at the age of 10, 1961. Looking back on those years, I am so blessed that I had those years in Beis Rivka, in New York, in 770. And if I would have to pinpoint one experience that shaped my life from then on, it's Hakafis. And gave me the feeling that all things are possible, all of these ideas and all of these dreams and all of these hopes and everything that could be. And keep in mind, I came of age in the 1960s. Nothing further need be said about hopes and dreams. I remember as a child hearing in the family that we're talking about my youngest aunt, who's my aunt Sarah Rivka Sasunkin, who's 9 years older than me. And she had been, there was no Beis Rivka in her day. She was in Beis Rivka and in Beis Yaakov, and she lived in Williamsburg and went to Beis Yaakov in Williamsburg. And she was describing how around the table, they were talking about Moshiach and what's it going to be like. And somebody was saying, "Stel sich nur vor," try and imagine. And my aunt repeating this at home, I'm not sure of all the details of the story, if she said this to everybody else, but this is how I remember the story. That she said, sie stellt sich vor und ich weiß. She is trying to imagine, but I know. And I remember clearly as a child thinking, sie stellt sich vor und ich weiß, Rivka knows. What does Rivka know? I didn't even have to complete the thought in my own head. Okay. I was in seminary. And just to give a little perspective, that when I heard later that when Moshiach comes, everyone will follow their Rebbe, my time in 770 was a taste of Moshiach. And hearing this thought that when Moshiach comes, everyone will follow their Rebbe, was one of the most nourishing and encouraging and inspiring things to come to me in my life. In seminary in Shvat Tavshin Lamed in the winter of 1970, that was when the Rebbe had said to finish Moshiach Sefer Torah. And a friend of mine in Borough Park said that, somebody had said to her, I heard that Moshiach is coming to Lubavitch. And it was a time when, from people in general, didn't really, if they spoke about the topic, it was Geulah. The word Moshiach wasn't really a word. And even that wasn't so much. We heard a lot about schar, whatever, but now the topic, Moshiach, Geulah, it's everywhere. You open any from magazine, publication, WhatsApps, it's everywhere. But that Friday, being in 770, that Friday, and the Rebbe had come into the shul holding a box. And up in the Viber shul, everybody go, what's in the box? What's in the box? And the prevalent opinion was that the box was full of panim. When the Rebbe reached into the box and pulled out that crown, I don't have the words to describe that moment. It was another taste of Moshiach. And then we went on Shlichus. I got married 2 years later. 2 years after that, we went on Shlichus, 1974, and the term Tzimtzum took on new meaning. The Rebbe guided us to teach B'chol Asar V'Asar Lefi Inyonei, that it's our responsibility to understand the mentality and the lifestyle of our communities, and to use that knowledge to bring them closer to Torah and mitzvahs, to Chassidus, to the Rebbe. The goal always clear in our own minds, even if we couldn't put it into words for others just yet. I remember coming back to 770 for the first time after we went on Shlichus, and just reveling in the opportunity to talk openly about all of these things. One of my teachers in high school, Mara Garwitz, had given me an image that stays with me until today. I had asked about how to talk to the high school girls at home in Nashville. Rabbi Chadakov had called me in and given me this job, and I just didn't know where to go with it. And her advice, picture them from, in my mind, picture them from, picture the world the way you want it to be. It occurred to me that another word for Yemei haMoshiach might be normal. Normal. Life the way it is meant to be. Whole families, no one missing, everyone healthy and happy, and hakafis all year long. Right after Gimel Tammuz, our family was challenged with severe health issues, for some of our children. My husband and I put a lot of effort into living ourselves and trying to help our children live with the Chassidish values of Simcha, Bitachon, and Ashreinu Matev Chalkenu, that we have a Rebbe who entrusts us with such important tafkidim and shlichusim, that our generation has the job of bringing Moshiach, and every mitzvah, every tefillah, every bit of Avos Yisrael is another step to making that happen sooner. We decided at the time, and this was literally a few weeks after Gimel Tammuz, that we needed a family niggin. We needed to pick one niggin that would be the niggin for our family. And we picked V'harikesi Lachem Bracha, because we felt that for us to make promises and to say, who are we to make promises? To spell out Trach gut vet sein gut, again, if we can do it on breitere places, broader shoulders than our own. And the words of the Navi are the words of the Navi. V'harikesi lachem bracha ad lidai. I will pour bracha down on you without limit, without end. Ad sheyivlu sivseisechem miloymar dai. Until your lips will become tired from saying enough, enough. And I had little kids, and we would talk about, when is it going to be enough? And as the years went by and situation became more complicated, it won't be no more hospitals and no more this equipment and this medicine and this device and this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And because we're not going to say die until all of that is gone. And that just stayed with us. A story that has meant a lot to me in many, many different circumstances is a story with the Baal Shem Tov, who picked someone to be his Baltkiya for Rosh Hashanah, and he gave him a whole hadracha guidance in how he should prepare and what he should learn and how he should daven and what he should have in mind every step of the way. He was a sincere chassid. He wanted to do, the Baal Shem gave him this responsibility. Obviously, came at Rosh Hashanah, he did everything that he was supposed to do. Came at Rosh Hashanah, and he stood up with the shofar, and his mind went totally blank. Totally blank. He could not think of one kavanah, of one tefillah, nothing. Of all of his preparations, he had nothing to show for it. He waited a little bit, couldn't do anything. He had no choice. He took the shofar in his hand and he blew. But he was an ehrliche younger man. He was an honest person. And he went over to the Baal Shem Tov later to apologize and to ask for mechila for having failed at the task that he was given. The Baal Shem Tov said to him, "You think I needed your kavanas? Do you think that's what I wanted?" What I wanted was your tzebrochene hearts. Sometimes what we're able to pull up at a time when we think we're totally empty and totally blank and we're taket tzebrochen, that whatever it is that we're able to pull up in such a moment, That was what the Baal Shem Tov answered him. So I'm going to share a couple of such moments, not chas v'shalom to put a Moshiach onto the call, but I believe that, I know that for myself, these stories, while they're painful, have been extremely helpful to me, and that there's a whole discussion in the Gemara of what's Yisurim. I'm not going to go into that right now, but the answer that the Gemara gives is that you put your hand in your pocket for one coin and you take out another, that's Yisurim. In other words, whatever the effect of Yisurim has to be, it doesn't chas v'shalom have to be with horrible stories. It can be the tiniest aggravation, the tiniest question, just be something that just like a little tap on the shoulder, something that makes us think about what we're doing, and chas v'shalom not to be connected with any kind of suffering. So the stories are a little bit heavy, but these stories have pushed me through many moments that, Baruch Hashem, are very good moments. So the first one, it happened, this was about 2 years later, and this was with our youngest, with Shlomi, and many of you have heard this story before, so you'll forgive me for sharing it again. But this was probably about a week before Shlomi was nifter. He was 6 and a few months old, 6 years old. And I had to change a dressing on the central line that went into his chest. And the process itself was not painful, but he would get very, very aggravated when I was doing it. And he would, he didn't want me to talk to anybody. He wanted me to concentrate. He knew about contaminated and sterile and whatever. So I was changing his dressing, which was not an unusual thing. And in the middle of the whole thing, he just burst out, "It's not fair." And I'm thinking, what do I say to him? What do I say to him? I have to be honest. I have to tell him the truth. What do I say? So I came up with the only thing that I could at the moment. And I said, "You're right. You're right. The Eibishter doesn't want the world to be like this. The Eibishter doesn't want kinderlach or grown-ups to have broviacs and all of these different things and dressings and all of this stuff in the hospital. But until Moshiach comes, we're in Geulah. And in Geulah, sometimes things like this happen." And he scrunched up his face and he yelled out, "This Geulah stinks." And everything that I have ever read and anything that I have ever heard, I have never heard something that sums up this Geulah like those 3 words from a 6-year-old boy. This Geulah stinks. And it was not, the idea of Moshiach coming, as I tried to note when I speak to unfamiliar audiences with these topics, that Moshiach was not introduced to him as a panacea for trouble and suffering and so on. Moshiach was introduced to him as something that this is the way the world is supposed to be, and that we have a part, we should have a part, we must have a part in making that happen. It was something that he himself felt empowered with. I have other stories about that, but I won't, not now. But that in that context, because I believe that it was something that was familiar, was not being schlepped up because he was in a difficult situation. But Moshiach is the way the world is supposed to be. That's what the Eibishter wants from the first place. I had received a bracha from the Rebbe for the oldest of our children that had this condition, and he lived to the age of 36. The bracha I got was when he was about a year old. And the Rebbe had given me the bracha, "V'yikuyim b'zeh hakatan gadol yehiyeh." It will be fulfilled in him that this small one will be great. He told one of his siblings years and years and years later that every single morning he looks into the mirror and he says to himself, "The Rebbe gave you a bracha, now go out and make it happen." And that idea of that we take a bracha and we go out and make it happen. And that just in general, our posture in life is not, okay, I don't know if you can see on the camera, I'm sitting with my hands folded. When's the show starting? We're not spectators. We have brachas, we have shlichus, we have so many things we have to go out and make it happen. With our Bloomy, who was 16, and she was in a very, very, very difficult situation. She couldn't speak because of all of the equipment, etc., but she was able to write a little note. They had given her some whatever treatment that made things a little bit better. Somebody should please go and tell Abba Revson at the Ale to bring in etc. Tell the Rebbe that I feel a little better. And as many times as I hear the idea that we have to bring B'suras Tevis to the Rebbe, that for me is like the example. And Rivki, who many of you knew, who took all of this, she lived through all of this with the other three and went through all of her own challenges and so on. And her videos are online. You can see them, Rivki Deren Berman. Her email signature was well known. Everything ends up okay in the end. If it's not okay, it's not the end. One of her cousins, right after Rivki was nifter, one of her cousins put on the family WhatsApp, guys, we have Rivki's WhatsApp. If it's not okay, it's not the end. This is not okay. This is not the end. We know what we have to do. And, the image, I think anybody that was there certainly never forgot it. It was something I honestly thought it was going to become regular practice because I thought it was such a brilliant idea. Rivki had asked that at her chuppah, which Baruch Hashem, that dream came true, that at her chuppah, before the chassan breaks the glass, to sing Ani Mamin. And it was, in our community, and I look at the video of it, of people who I could not even have imagined standing there and singing Ani Mamin. I was asked to share about my experience with sharing with others. So I'll pick one story. Again, it's a story that I have told often, but it's a story that continues to guide me. So if you've heard it, sorry. But the first young lady who went from our Chabad house to a Pegisha, to Beis Chana, from there to Machon Chana, from there to Beis Rivka, and she got engaged, and her chassan was one of the first to go from Tiferes to Tamchit Mimim to 770 to get smicha. And Rabbi Mentlik, who was his Rosh Yeshiva, came to their l'chaim. And he was very, very emotional. He loved his Talmidim dearly. And he was so devoted to them. And he was speaking at their l'chaim. And this was a few days before, it was around Shavuos. I think it was a few days before, maybe a few days after. But he was talking about the Yaldei Hasadeh, the children of the field. Who are the children of the field? It says by Shiras Hayam, Zeh Keli V'Anvehu, this is my God, and I will exalt him. Who were the ones who said that, who pointed with a finger, Zeh Keli V'Anvehu? The Yaldei Hasadeh, who were the children who the Malachim rescued from the Mitzrim, who they then had to bring out to the field because they couldn't go home because of the danger of the Egyptians. And they were raised with miracles from their infancy. And they were reunited with their families by the Yam Suf. So when the Nisim of Kriyas Yam Suf happened, they were the ones to say, they recognized the Eibishter first. They were Melumed B'Nisim. They recognized him first. And he was talking about this idea and the Yaldei Hasadeh, and he was referring to the Balei Tshuva who come. I don't remember how he brought out this idea of Heim Hikiruhu Tchila, the Maila that the Balei Tshuva have, that they recognize the Eibishter and they recognize the Rebbe first. Okay, she got married, Baruch Hashem, children. She and her husband are shluchim. Several of their children are shluchim. The first Einikul was born, Shvi Shel Pesach. Her second Einikul was born, Shvi Shel Pesach. Her third Einikul was born on Shvi Shel Pesach. And she said to me, like, what is this? I said, I don't know. But I'm just saying. I said, you remember your L'chaim. You remember what Rabbi Mentlik said about the Yaldei Hasada Heim Hikiruhu Tchila. When did that happen? It happened on Shvi Shel Pesach. For me, the beauty of the experience of sharing is everything, the Sfarim, the CDs, the videos, the podcasts, the wealth of the explosion of Chassidus that's out in our world today that is coming from Balei Tshuva, that is coming from people who came to this knowledge. It's not like the image that an outsider could have looking in and thinking that the Chassidim go out and they bring this to the Balei Tshuva who now aspire to what the Chassidim, the Shluchim have. Yeah, okay, it's not wrong, but it's a very incomplete picture. How much we are enriched, what the Gemara says, that more than the balabas gives the ani gives the balabas, and more than what the teacher gives the student gives the teacher. How enriched, I can speak for myself, my life is by the interactions with the people that I learn with whether it's in my life personally or just the things that I have been zeichet to learn and to hear from the Yaldei Hasada who are producing such magnificent material. Maybe because I was born in Tafshin Yud Aleph, maybe because I think everybody has like a certain sicha that like just clicks with them, and it's always to go back to. This happened a few months before I was born in the first sikha, and now we can hear it in enhanced audio, whatever, that was not possible years ago. We didn't even have the tape years ago. Where the Rebbe is saying after Yud Shvat Tavshin Yud Aleph, after the Maimer of Basi Lagani. And the Rebbe is the famous statements. And there's a phrase that the Rebbe uses that I feel like, I hope it's branded on my brain. I wish it would be branded on my brain. Ir dafton allein. Met nidjalven helfen, tomen mit kennen mit deppes helfen, wird mit nidjalven helfen. Aber ir dafton allein. You have to do it yourselves. If there's something that I'll be able to help you with, I won't be stingy about helping, but you have to do it yourselves. Now, the Rebbe had said before that don't think that you appointed someone who's going to do the work for you. And the Rebbe uses different adjectives to describe that. And don't think that everybody can now go back and live your nice, from life, and nobody's going to bother you. Nobody is taking off all of the shlichus and all of the jobs that were given to you. Nobody is taking them off. And then the Rebbe says, and if I think of this as the biggest understatement in all of history. If there's something that I can help you with, I won't be stingy to help. And then look at what happens over the next 40 years. And to me, it feels like those 40 years from Yud Aleph Shvat, Tavshin Yud Aleph, until Chav Ches Nisan, Tavshin Nun Aleph, 40 years later, it's almost like a mirror reflection, only in a different order. Among the many speakers on Sunday, something that really resonated with me, and I will be very honest and tell you, like it clicked like that because I have heard this idea from my husband, Zoller Sein Gesund, over many years. Rabbi Manis Friedman was saying, When the Rebbe says, I did all that I could, I gave you everything you need. I gave you everything you need. It's the inverted order from Yud Shvat Tavshin Yud Aleph. The Rebbe said this first. First he said, I won't be stingy to help. And then 40 years later, I gave you everything that you need. You don't need new proclamations. You don't need new projects. You don't need new mivtzaim. You don't need to invent. Yes, there's always, like we were talking about a little bit before, asar va'asar lefi inyane, the different ways of packaging, the different ways of giving, but you don't need to come up with any new fundamentals. Everything that you have, all the tools that you have, and just by the way, even when we speak about the mitzvahim, I want to just share a little bit with personal experience, because this idea of ir daftan alein, how much the Rebbe wants to see from us is sarusa de lasata. So the Mivtza Neshek was an incredible example of that. And then the Rebbe says, after the 40 years, you have everything you have. You need everything you need to have. I don't believe that the Rebbe is saying there that we're doing anything wrong. I mean, obviously, if we know that we are, we should stop. Anything we have to fix, we should fix. Okay, given. But maybe part of what we're being told is, you're doing great. Keep on doing it. Do more of it. Don't stop. Don't get discouraged. Somebody was just telling me last night about her son who's doing a class with kids from his bunk in camp. And here we are, it's now Iyar, and he was saying to his mother, maybe I should stop because there's only 2 kids left on the class. And she said, Chas v'shalom, to stop. Keep doing what you're doing. The fact that people drop out or drop off, if you can figure out a way to get them back in, that's fine, but don't stop. Don't give up. Don't be discouraged. The famous answer to Rabbi Gutnick, Moshe Rabbeinu had one mother. You never know what that one action is going to be. But to know that every single time we do something that the Rebbe has guided us to do, we are bringing Moshiach closer. And when the Rebbe said in that Sikha, Eiris de Tehu in Kalim of Tikkun, in our mind, that picture of normal, that picture of Hakafis, that picture of way the world will look, the way we will look, the way our families will look, the way everything will look, has to be clear. Mashiach in this world is normal. Anything other is unacceptable. Unacceptable. But Kalim de Tikkun. Kalim de Tikkun. And in every single place, it's going to be different kind of Kalim. The Rebbe's words, B'chal asar v'asar lefi inyane, and al chabad al asar lahachlit. You're the shliach in the place. You know your place. You figure out what works. I think one of the ingredients that I haven't really touched on yet that I probably should, and I have no idea how much more time I have or whatever. Bracha, where are we? Oops.
There's no way I could stop this. I want to be in this Farbrengen until forever. I don't know. Keep going, please. I don't know. Whoever needs to leave, leave.
So I'll put a little bit more.
Can I say something, actually? I just sorry to interrupt, but before I move on to the next thought, in the beginning you said that it used to be that people thought about Moshiach, it was associated with stars. It was like, we need Moshiach, it was always with that association. I was thinking of the story of like the guy who's like looking for the parking space, you know, and he's like davening and davening for Hashem for the parking space. And I'm thinking about the world right now, that it's almost like for the last year, like there's been this cry of like, we need Moshiach, and like people are kvetching. And then like there's this opening now and people are getting vaccinated and things are opening up and the world seems whatever. And I'm like afraid. I'm like worried. You're like, I don't want the world to say like, never mind, Hashem, I got my parking space, you know, like.
So I think, and actually, I'm glad that you brought that up, and it does tie into the next thought that I want to share. Our connection to Moshiach is the opening question of Hayom Yom that was written in the middle of the Holocaust, but the question is still a burning question. Different kind of challenges and different kind of fires that are burning, but they're burning. And, you know, as shluchos, we have, you know, upfront and close evidence of all of the fires that are burning. And the Rebbe opens up Hayom Yom with saying that every one of us has to ask ourselves, what have I done and what am I doing to bring the arrival of Mashiach closer? I think just on the lines of what you said, I think our focus, if that question is Mashiach here, no, okay, where do we go? I think that there are a few things that might be helpful to keep in mind. Number one, this first idea, which is like a thread running through, I quoted from Yud Shvat, but goes through till Chav Ches Nisan and beyond, of what are you doing? Don't underestimate your role in the big picture. It's not just what are you doing on your little stage of your little shlichus or your big stage of your big shlichus. It's also what are you thinking in your head when you sit down with your coffee? How much are you shifting your own attitudes? The Rebbe speaks in that sikha about the Geulah hapratis and the Gullus haprati, and what are we doing about that? But that question is, what am I doing to bring Mashiach on a personal level and a global level, everything in between, does not include setting dates. I was extremely, and I'm just speaking for myself, I was extremely uncomfortable last year when before Pesach, there was, for sure, Mashiach is coming by Pesach. My first thought is, why are we waiting till Pesach? Why are we waiting till Pesach? But I had been guided on it's not our job to set dates. The only date that we have is this minute. And it's in the ways that the Rebbe spoke, it's only this minute. So similarly, when people talk about, oh, this happened, for sure it's Moshiach Zeiten. It's been Moshiach Zeiten for a long time. We don't need signs. We don't need indicators. That's not our business. That's not where our encouragement comes from. Our encouragement comes from knowing that we are doing everything we can to do what the Rebbe told us to do. Another mitzvah, another tefillah, a better quality tefillah, hafatzas hamayanis, all of the things the Rebbe wants us to do. That's our only question. Personally, I felt like I needed to respond with all of this stuff before Mashiach. So what I was saying to everybody, okay, my husband's a Kayan, I can get you in online for your Korban Pesach, Erev Pesach, because I felt, okay, I'm not putting a date on it. I'm saying Mashiach will come today, but they're still going to have to bring a Korban Pesach. So I'm going to, talk to my husband about, could you please speak to let this one in. And the same thing with getting caught up with name tags for Mashiach. The operative term for me is when Mashiach comes, everybody will go after the Rebbe. Finished. It doesn't add for me. It doesn't. I don't want to hear anything that takes my focus off of fulfilling the job, the tafkid, the mandate, the responsibility that the Rebbe gave. Did you all see the video that Jem put out yesterday of the woman who's telling the Rebbe a woman in a lot of pain, and it's very, very difficult to watch. Evidently, she had just a child had passed away, and the Rebbe is telling her, you have to watch it. You have to watch it. But basically, that she wants the Rebbe to bring Moshiach, and the Rebbe is saying, I already told you, it's up to you. And the Rebbe points around the room twice, you and you and you. That's our focus. Everything else is distraction. It's me in my life at this moment, every single moment. So I think that one of the big factors for us as women, I did once get this in an answer from the Rebbe when I had asked for guidance many years ago. And the Rebbe answered me, Al pi Shulchan Aruch, Kailel bitachen b'Hashem, v'simcha ba'avedaseh. So I just want to briefly touch on the other ones. Al pi Shulchan Aruch, personally, I find that extremely liberating. I don't have to figure out how I feel about doing this mitzvah, that mitzvah, whatever. Al pi Shulchan Aruch, tell me what to do. Let me know what to do. Kailel bitachen b'Hashem, which is a whole interesting thing. It took me 40 years after I got this answer to realize, in the middle of a phone call for an interview, and I'm like, whoa, I thought there were three things here. I realize it's one is part of the other. Bitachen b'Hashem is part of Shulchan Aruch. What does that mean? It's another Farbrengen. But basically, we have to at least put ourselves into the place where bitachen is in our behavior. Start with the behavior. If I knew that everything's going to be just right, how would I act? And work it from there. But that's my interpretation. I want to talk about the last one. Simcha ba'avedaseh. Simcha ba'avedaseh. And simcha in serving him. Eibishter should bench everybody to always feel besimcha for all of the reasons around you. And the Eibishter should give everybody many reasons to be besimcha. And that we should have the brains to have gratitude. It's not a new word, and it wasn't just invented by some lady on a TV show. This is us. This is us. Gratitude is who we are. Yehudim. There was a little boy who was a delivery boy for his parents' grocery store. And he used to help her, he would bring groceries to Rebbe Tzimchana, and he would help her put away the groceries. And he asked Rebbe Tzimchana one time, what's the Rebbe's favorite tefillah? And Rebbe Tzimchana said, I don't know, but I'll ask him. And she asked the Rebbe. And the Rebbe answered, Meida Ani. I only noticed last night that Meida Ani is the theme of Hayom Yom of Yud Aleph Shvat, of the first official day of the Rebbe's Nesius. I only noticed that last night. Meida Ani. And it's not just gratitude in a general sense. We don't have gratitude to the universe. Do you hear that term, in your communities? The universe. What kind of universe? Gratitude to the Eibishter. Gratitude to. Thanksgiving to whom? Gratitude to the Rebbe, gratitude to your parents, gratitude to your husbands, gratitude to your children, gratitude all over the place. Gratitude too. Because gratitude is the fertile soil in which simcha can grow. The more we are able to express gratitude and to feel gratitude for the brachas that we have, the more we are able to be besimcha. And the more we are able to be besimcha, the more we are able to receive more brachas. In the Gulf War, we knew that the war was starting. It started on Wednesday. It was January 15th. That date had been out there from the summer. Thursday night, I was on a Zoom call, a conference call to plan the first Knesset Shluchos. And while we were on the call, we got word that Scuds fell on Tel Aviv. We did not have the imagination. We did not have the imagination to think that Scuds could land in Tel Aviv and nobody gets hurt. So we were all very tumult. Okay, and then we heard Nissen. And by the morning, we were hearing more Nissen. And a Haira came from 770 that the Rebbe said to tell people that it should be a Freiliche Shabbos. We did not yet have our own Chabad house. My husband went to the shul in the town that he was davening in with our children. And he was telling them that the Rebbe said that this has to be a Freiliche Shabbos. And there was one younger man there who was from Iran, whose parents were still in Iran, and he was shaking. And he said, excuse me, how can we be besimcha? How can we be happy when we don't know what's going to happen? And my 13-year-old son said, and I have been quoting this for 40 years, he said, we have to show Hashem that we're happy with his nisim, so he will send us more of them. Simcha makes space for more simcha. Simcha makes space for good things to happen. It makes space for bracha. Gratitude leads to simcha, and simcha. Now, I said before, and I'll say it again, and I can't say it enough, that everybody should have 1 million reasons to be besimcha that are everything should be good in our lives, in everybody's lives, in all the pratim, health and parnasa and children and shalom bayis, everything. But I want to come back to the Rebbe's answer. Not but, and I want to come back to the Rebbe's answer. The Rebbe wrote to me, Simcha ba'avedaseh, Simcha in serving Hashem. Because all of the circumstantial simcha, it's not always in our hands to control it. Simcha ba'avedaseh is always in our hands. It's always in our hands. We can always make that decision. So maybe it means that the smile is going to start on the outside and work its way in, and that's okay. Maybe it means that we're doing things to put smiles on other people's faces, but it's a non-negotiable. It has to be. To be a chassid means to be able to be besimcha. I'm not saying this to put a guilt trip on you, or in myself. I'm very good at that. I'm saying it to understand how much power we have. There's a word that's out there now. It's called choice. I heard this idea for many years in Tanya, and I thought it's for me, it's on the moon. It's not in my life. Me'ech shalat al halev. What is me'ech shalat al halev? Choose. I can choose my attitude. I'm not a puppet being pulled by strings. I can choose. I may not be able to choose my circumstances. I can always choose my attitude. And to understand that when we say that the Eibishter runs the world, that what we're saying is that he has a purpose for me every single minute of my life. And maybe that's some of the simcha, that I know that everything that I do matters. Everything that I do matters. And I think that for women especially, the ability to generate simcha, and sometimes, let's, be a little realistic. Sometimes the simcha ba'avedaseh needs to get jump-started with, the Gashmi stick is simcha also. So if you need chocolate, you need chocolate. I mean, let's be real. But accepting that responsibility, accepting that I can do this. I know I can do this because that's where I am. If I couldn't do it, I wouldn't be here. I don't have to have a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan. I don't have to figure out what's happening next week. Moshiach can come today. Moshiach should come today. Moshiach must come today. But my job is not to give him a calendar, except for this minute. My job is me. What am I doing? And I think that maybe a perspective, and there are two perspectives that I wanted to just share, because when you listen to the Sikha of Chav Ches Nissen, the tsar in the Rebbe's voice is unmistakable. And I think two things that occur to me with that. One of them is along the lines of what I was saying before, that the Rebbe is telling us, I gave you everything that you need to have. Maybe a little bit is similar to what Mordechai says to Esther about going to Achashverosh. He says, Revach v'hatzala yamed leYehudim. The Yidden are going to be saved. That is not a question. But what's going to happen to you in your father's house? That Mashiach is coming is a given. Somewhere, I could not find it, but it's somewhere in Hayam Yam, and it's not in the index, or at least I wasn't looking for it properly. I couldn't find it. But the Rebbe writes about how when Mashiach het kommen, wird man erst denken nach the Geulah Tag. When Mashiach comes, we're going to yearn for these last days of Geulah. Weil jetzt kann man uftan, because now we can accomplish. Mashiach comes, it's going to be beautiful beyond description, but we won't be able to accomplish that we have now. And in the Rebbe's infinite Avos Yisrael for us, the Rebbe wants to make sure that we have that feeling, that we are able to feel that we do something, that we have a part in bringing Mashiach. He doesn't want us to look back with, why didn't I realize? Why didn't I chapsach what I could do? He wants us to chapsach now, so we can do now. And the Rebbe is not looking on the big stage or the little stage or any stage. If you're on a stage, yeah, sure, you have to a part to play there. But don't think in terms of the big stuff. Unless you have to think of the big stuff, then do think in terms of the big stuff. But if we're thinking, even if you're thinking in terms of the big stuff, we all have to think about the little stuff. We all have to think about the little encounters, the relationships, the connections in our lives. My mother used to say before my mother was an early childhood educator for all of my life. And she used to say before every teacher's meeting, a child who loves their Mora will love being Jewish. They will love Hashem. They will love the Torah. I used to think that this was something important for children who are not coming from families. I realize now it's for everybody. It's for everybody. And every good connection that somebody is able to make in their learning and in their progress and in their growth, and we're all on a learning curve and and works in progress and all of that. Every single good thing that happens because of a good connection. You never know when you can be somebody else's good connection. You never know. It can be in your family. It can be what your family is able to do because of what you are in your family. But if we as shluchos, as wives and mothers and daughters and sisters, accept upon ourselves and friends and so on, that we are the CEO of Simcha in our Sviva. So that's one thought that I think that the Rebbe, Pashat the Avos Yisrael, I gave it to you, please do it. Tut alts was ihr kennt, because you need it. You need to be part of it. You need to have this so that you'll have that. And I think it's also worth noting that in the Sichos of Nun Aleph and Nun Beis, 1991 and 1992, there are many, many extraordinary Sichos in which the Rebbe describes Inyonei Moshiach u Geulah in terms that, yes, it's a golden thread that runs all the way through, but the proliferation, the how much the Rebbe focused on this in those months is extraordinary. There's also a sikha that stands out, and it's very different. And it's the sikha after Peshalei Lapine, Hashem Yikim Dama, after she was murdered. And it's a very painful sikha to listen to. And maybe this is also part of the sikha of Chav Ches Nisan and the tsar that we hear on Chav Ches Nisan, that as long as there's gullus, there's still suffering. And that motivation in itself should push us, that there should be no more daloi gullus, in the Rebbe's words. I think the Russians tell me if I said that right. Enough of gullus, no more gullus, we've had it. And that, when we find our parking space, like Bracha was describing later, and when the Eibishter helps and we feel something of a Geulah HaPratis, the Rebbe always held the image that there are at this moment, at any moment, as long as we're in Golus, that there are people who are suffering. And sometimes in the worst kind of suffering, that they don't even know that they're suffering. They don't even know what they're deprived of. And so that the awareness of that helps us also to stay focused. To finish on a good note, the Rebbe's love for us is a golden thread all the way through. And that the Rebbe's confidence in us is something that we should always hold on to and always keep in our minds. If I can just close with a quote from my husband, who has often said that you don't have to be a chassid to believe in the Rebbe. The way he puts it, anybody with brains in their head can believe in the Rebbe. To be a chassid means to know and to believe that the Rebbe believes in you. Eibishter should help that we should live up to that belief and be able to give the Rebbe B'suras Tevis.
Amen.
Rebbe Moshiach. Yeah.
So yeah, the chocolate is real, by the way. And I was reading a sikha last night from the Nun Aleph, and it was the sikha right after the Chav Ches Nisan one, a week later. And I don't know why I read it before I went to bed, because it shook me so much. It was so intense. The Rebbe screaming. You can hear it even just in the words on the pages. Wasn't even listening to it. I was just reading the words. And I was shaking, and I was thinking about the chocolate and the taste of Moshiach. The Rebbe wanted us to have the taste of Moshiach, that we have to, there's the feeling of good, like finding the parking space, is a motivator. It shouldn't stop us there. That's not where we should stop, because like you said, there's so much suffering. And the chocolate sometimes is that we have to realize what Moshiach is going to be like. So hopefully that will motivate us. Thank you so much. I'm totally mind blown. And I know that the rest of us on here feel the same looking at the comments. We have another 8 weeks. We're going to be learning together. So stick with us, ladies who are joining today, and there'll be a recording as well for today. Thank you so much, Mrs. Deren. We should really
thank you for the opportunity.
Get up and do something. The Rebbe is begging us to. Thank you.
We should have this.
Okay.
We should be safe.
We gotta go Caravel Pint.
Thank you, Mrs. Deren, and thank you everyone for joining. We should continue this Farbrengen in Yerushalayim.
Amen. Amen.